Life is a Marathon, session 91. Hey, thank you so much for taking time to be with me today. I want to do a short little lesson, conversation, coaching tip, if you will, about a subject that I have talked about briefly, scattered throughout lots of episodes before. In fact, I've done the converse of what I'm going to talk about. I did an entire episode. In fact, it was episode number 32, so almost 60 episodes ago. That's hard to believe that I've done 91 of these already. So in that episode, I talked about the importance of having a morning routine and getting your day off to a good start. And so what I talked about in that episode was the things that I do every morning, almost every morning, to get my day off to a good start. So it includes things like doing some exercising and stretching and journaling and meditating and deep breathing and reviewing my goals for not only for the day but for my life, keeping those things constantly in the forefront of my mind so that I know how to go about the day, and it establishes the energy that I want to bring into that day. And so I think it's really, really important to do that every single morning. But I have never talked specifically about what you should do at the end of the day. And I think that what you do at the end of your day, right before, and I'm talking about right before you go to sleep, within like the first 20 minutes or so before you turn out the lights and your head hits the pillow, I think that those last 20 minutes, half an hour before you go to sleep, are arguably the most important minutes of your entire day. And arguably those 30 minutes, what you think about, the feelings that you feel during the few minutes right before you go to bed, are so important because they program you for how you wake up in the morning. And one of the things that inspired me to do this short little coaching tip is a quote by Zig Ziglar. And you know how much I love Zig. Zig said, "At the end of the day, you can focus on what's tearing you apart or on what's holding you together." So at the end of the day, you can focus on what's tearing you apart or on what's holding you together. And so what do you do right before you go to bed? Okay, now a lot of times that can be varied, because if you've got kids, then you're putting kids to bed, and so very often now my boys are older, and so while during the school days, I still tuck my 12-year-old in bed every single night, and I kiss him and we talk, and so that's sort of our nightly routine. But very often, as soon as the boys are in bed, I'm in bed too. I don't do a lot of things in the evening. Now, if I'm out with friends and I'm out late, then as soon as I get home, if the boys are already in bed, I hit the bed and, I fall right asleep. But I try to not do that. I try to go through a nightly routine just as much as I try to go through my morning routine. And it's really, really important that you do that, because think about this. If you're getting somewhere between 6 and 8 hours of sleep a night, okay, and I've got a teenager, and so at least on weekends and on holidays, he's sleeping 12 hours, which is an awesome thing because his body is growing, his brain is growing, everything is growing, so he needs a lot more sleep. I know that in my life, I require as close to 8 hours of sleep every night as I possibly can, because if I go, I know people who go on less than that. I know I've got some friends who just routinely get 5 hours of sleep at night. And that's fine. That's what works for them. But for me, I know that if I go multiple nights in a row without getting 8 hours of sleep, then I'm really starting to drag. I'm really starting to feel it after about 4 or 5 days of that. And so as much as possible, if I can stay on a cycle of getting 8 hours of sleep, that's what works best for me. So you know your body, you know your lifestyle and the requirements that are on you. So I would encourage you to do that. But let's for the sake of reasoning here, let's assume that you get somewhere between 6 and 8 hours of sleep every night. That is on average, okay, think about this. We spend 25 to 30% of our lives asleep. Okay, so multiply that by 51 years. Okay, and I'm just doing this off the top of my head. So I actually maybe should have sat down and done the math, but I hadn't really thought that through. So, but we spend on average about 25 to 30% of our lives asleep. Now here's the deal: our bodies are asleep, but our minds aren't. Okay, when we are asleep, our subconscious mind is very, very much at work. And what scientists, doctors have discovered, and this isn't any kind of new discovery, that while we are asleep, the thoughts that we are thinking, the feelings that we are feeling, the images that we put into our brain or we conjure up in our conscious mind right before we go to sleep, that is predominantly what your brain processes while you are sleeping. Okay? So what you think about, the feelings that you feel, the images that you put in your mind, either by watching TV or just recalling the day's events or some other images in your mind. I've got a new book that's going to be coming out about worry. And so much of worry is about the images that we're creating in our mind. We're worried about a situation, and so we play a movie in our head. And so it's those images that we go to bed with that our subconscious mind spends the most amount of time processing while our bodies are asleep. Okay? And now here's a fact. Let's suppose that you've been out late and you know you've got to get up the next morning. If you go to sleep, and you can do this. This is actually from my morning routine episode. There's this really cool book by Hal Elrod called The Miracle Morning. Highly recommend it. But he talks about it, and you can do this. You can experiment with this yourself. If you've got to get up really early and you know that you're not going to get the normal amount of sleep, if you go to sleep telling yourself, I'm going to be so tired in the morning, well, guess how you normally wake up? You have programmed, you went to bed programming yourself to wake up tired and not feeling well in the morning. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, no, when I wake up in the morning, I just really am tired because I didn't get much sleep. Well, here's an experiment that you can do. And Hal Elrod did this in his book. And when I knew that I wanted to get up in the morning and start running, because I do most of my marathon training early in the morning. And so when I started this, you can program your mind. You can say, you know what? I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to feel great. Don't even mention the fact that you're not going to get as much sleep. But if you will think to yourself, I'm going to feel great when I get up in the morning, especially if you've got something that you're excited about doing, like starting a new morning routine. I'm so looking forward to getting up to writing in my journal in the morning or just having some quiet time all by myself. If you'll say that to yourself when you go to sleep, regardless of how much sleep you're actually going to get, you will wake up in the morning with the thought, I'm awake. Um, and now I'm excited about being awake because that's how you programmed yourself. Okay, so think about that. If you say to yourself, um, maybe you've had a bad day at work today, and you're anticipating it being a bad day at work tomorrow. If you go to bed thinking the thoughts, oh, it's going to be a bad day tomorrow, well, guess what it's going to be? Okay, if you, like I just said, if you say, I'm going to be so tired in the morning, well, no surprise there. But you can say just the opposite, okay? If you've gone to bed angry at the kids or angry at your spouse, you usually wake up in the morning with those feelings. They carry over, so your conscious mind wants to pick up right where it left off. And your subconscious mind processed all of those things and ingrained more images, more bitterness, more resentment. And so that's how you wake up in the morning. If you go to bed beating yourself up for some mistake, some failure that you made or had during the day, then you're going to wake up in the morning feeling those things, because how you go to bed, the thoughts that you're thinking, you are programming yourself to wake up that way in the morning. Okay, images from late night news. You've heard, if you've listened to my show at all, you know that we don't even have TV in our house. Yes, I am a dad who is raising two boys, an 18-year-old and a 12-year-old, and we do not have cable TV. And guess what? They're fine. Okay? We have the internet, and they stream online what it is they want to see, but we don't just have the TV on all the time. Years ago, I stopped watching news, and the way I stopped watching news was primarily by stopping watching the evening news, because I learned this about myself. If I watched the evening news right before I went to bed with those images. Images of war, images of a bad economy, images of some murder or crime that happened in my city or my neighborhood or nationally. And those are just not the thoughts that I want in my mind any time of day, but especially not at night, because that's not what I want my subconscious mind thinking about. Okay, this is not a new idea, folks. The Bible, and even from the thousands of years ago. Okay, so the Bible has a verse that says, "Do not let the sun go down on your anger." Okay, so God and the writers of the Bible, that's from the book of Ephesians, knew about the poison that puts in your mind. So think about this. Okay, those thoughts, bitterness, anger, resentment, images from the news. Would you agree with me that those are toxic? That those are poisonous to your soul? So if what you want to be is a happy, optimistic person, would you agree that having the kinds of images that are on TV, or going to bed with anger or resentment or worry, would you agree with me that those are toxic thoughts, that those are acid, they're acidic to you? Okay? Would you knowingly put some kind of acid on your skin and then go to bed without washing it off? Would you knowingly go to bed with something in your mouth that you know is going to erode your teeth? Okay? Would you do that without brushing your teeth, without rinsing your mouth out? Of course not, because you know the physical effects. Well, there are mental, there are psychological effects of going to bed with negative images in your mind, with negative feelings inside you. So wherever possible, don't let the sun go down on your anger. If you've been fighting with your kids or your spouse, say, you know what? We've had a rough day today, but I want you to know I love you. We'll pick up and maybe we'll talk about these things tomorrow, but I don't want to fight with you, and I don't want to go to bed angry. So go to bed knowing I love you. I'm going to go to bed knowing that you love me. And this is just a difference of opinion, whatever it is that we're dealing with. There's some way that you can bring peace to the situation before you go to bed. Maybe the issue isn't completely resolved, but you can say, you know what? Let's set it on the nightstand for tonight and let's sleep peacefully. I love you. Okay? You can do that. Okay, so I gave up watching TV, but one of the things that I do to replace it, so it's not so much that you that you want to eliminate negative images from your mind when you go to bed. You want to replace them with positive images. And so I keep a journal, and I start my morning routine is journaling. And the most important part of my journaling is my gratitude log. Every single morning, I make a list of at least 5 things for which I am grateful. 5 things that if I did not have them, if they were to be taken away from me, I would miss them, okay? And so every day, I make a list of 5 things, and there are 5 things, different things every day. I try to mix it up. I'm always thankful for my boys. I'm always thankful for being alive. I'm always thankful for my health and the house that I live in. I don't list those things necessarily every morning, but every morning I make a list of at least 5 things for which I'm grateful. Now, what I do at night, I think, is just as important, and it's ultimately bathed in gratitude, but I keep what's called a victory log. Unless I'm really exhausted and I've had just a really busy evening and I need to just go straight to bed, I still at least think through my victory log before I go to bed. But wherever I can write these things down just before I go to bed, that's what's really important. And so what I do is I do a daily review. I think about my day. And one of the things that I learned to stop doing was criticizing myself. I stopped beating myself up. And what I started doing was coaching myself. I'm a life coach, right? And so I coach myself rather than criticize myself. I look through my day, and very often now, because it's just become what I do, I journal these things throughout the day because I keep a little app on my iPhone and it's on my desktop. I use an app called Evernote, so it syncs. So if I make a note on my phone, it also is on my laptop by the time I get to that. And if there are things that I've done during the day that I did well, I make a short note of it. The presentation went well, the podcast went well, the coaching call that I had with somebody, it went really well, and I'll mention a thing or two. This isn't really long journaling. These are just sort of headlines that jar my memory to cause me to remember the things that went well during the day. So what were my victories? What are the things that made me happy? Did somebody at the grocery store say a kind thing to me? Did somebody smile? Did somebody say something nice? Whatever it was, these are the things that I want in my mind, okay? And so I write them down. I never, ever, ever write down my failures or my mistakes. I'm aware of them, okay? But I write down my victories. And I do that every single night. The things I'm proud of, the things I want more of in my life. Because I've said over and over and over again, we get more of what we focus on. And so if I focus on the failures, the disappointments, that's what I get more of. I lived most of my life that way. I focus on my victories. I focus on the things that make me happy. I focus on the things that I did to make somebody else happy, because that's what I want more of in my life. That's what I do every night before I go to bed. Okay? That's what I encourage you to do every night before you go to bed. So, keep a gratitude log in the morning. Keep a victory log at night. And know that that is what you need to do to wake up positive with a great attitude in the morning. I also fall asleep listening to my affirmations recordings. Okay, and so I fall asleep. I put my earbuds in. I put my iPhone on auto repeat, and then I set a timer that automatically turns it off after about 45 minutes. I'm always sound asleep by then. But I go to sleep listening to an affirmations recording I made. You can get a copy of it. You can go to brucevanhorn.com/affirmations. And if you want to listen to it, it's 12 minutes long. You can put it on an infinite loop. There's some nice soothing music. You'll just fall asleep and you will very much enjoy that. So that's what I do at night. That's what I wanted to share with you. Okay, so if you've gotten anything out of this, I would greatly hear. I would greatly appreciate some feedback. I'd like to know what you do. If you've got a routine that's somewhat similar that you do every night, I would love to hear that, and I'll share it with everybody else if you want me to. So let me hear back from you. If you have not yet discovered, I've started putting videos of me recording this podcast up on YouTube. And so you can find that on my YouTube channel. Super easy. YouTube.com/Bruce Van Horn. All spelled together, all one word. YouTube.com/Bruce Van Horn. If you want to watch me record these podcasts, you can do that. Would love to have you subscribe to that. Would also love to have you subscribe on iTunes. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook and you're not subscribed to the iTunes podcast, would love you to do that too. lifeisamarathon.com/iTunes will take you directly to that page where you can click subscribe. Anyway, I love you. Thank you for listening to me. Tonight, go to bed focused on the good things that happened, the things you want more of in your life, because that's what I want more of for you in your life. I want nothing but the best for you. Life is a marathon, so let's train for it.